Hello, students. Mrs. Miller here, and I am here with Chapter 6 of Gifted Hands. Now, in Chapter 5, we found out some things about Dr. Carson. The author had used something called a flashback, and we found out that when he was just a young boy, when his mom first taught them about the Lord, then he had gotten baptized, but then when he was 12 years old, he wanted to be rebaptized because he said he better understood what that meant. Now, he also said at the end of chapter 5, the author left us off with this right here. It was at age 14 that I confronted the most severe personal problem of my life, one that almost ruined me forever. And friends, this is something called foreshadowing. The author is dropping breadcrumbs, so to speak, to let us know that we're about to find out we're about to find out something bad, a personal problem that occurred in his life. Now, since we had used, so that's foreshadowing. Since we had used flashback, we know that this had happened, but then also with all of the capping that had taken place, that was when he was in high school. That he got made fun of so much, and then he became one of the main cappers. And then eventually he got the kind of clothes that he wanted so that he could fit in. And so I feel like all of that is going to come together, and we're going to find out what this very big personal problem of his life was that almost ruined him. I am on chapter 6, A Terrible Temper. Ah, this text feature, which is just the title of the chapter, helps us to be able to know what the chapter is most likely going to be about. So, my prediction is that Dr. Carson has a really, really bad temper. And then, as kids are making fun of him, that one day he's just going to go off and maybe beat somebody up. I've been around young people for a long time, and he's going to beat somebody up, and I think it's going to be pretty severe because here it said one that almost ruined me forever. So I think it's going to be pretty bad because there's fights all the time, and we wouldn't say that it almost ruined our life necessarily. So let's get going with chapter 6. That sure was a dumb thing to say, Jerry taunted as we walked down the hall together after English class. Kids crowded us on all sides, and Jerry's voice rose above the din. I shrugged. Guess so. My wrong answer in seventh grade English had been embarrassing enough. I didn't want to be reminded. Okay, so we know that in the previous chapter, we read about what happened when he was in 10th grade with his grades dropping. And then we went back to when he was a baby, and then back to when he was 12 years old. And now, here in this chapter, he's in 7th grade. Okay? You guess? Jerry's laugh was shrill. Listen, Carson, that was one of the all time stupid things of the year. I turned my eyes toward him. He was taller and heavier, not even one of my close friends. You've said some pretty dumb things, too, I said softly. Oh, yeah? Yeah. Just last week, you. Our words flew back and forth, my voice remaining calm while his grew louder and louder. Finally, I turned to my locker. I'd just ignore him, and maybe he'd shut up and go away. My fingers twirled the combination lock. Then, just as I lifted the lock, Jerry shoved me. I stumbled, and my temper flared. I forgot about the 20 pounds of muscle he had on me. I didn't see the kids and teachers milling in the hall. I swung at him, lock in hand. The blow slammed into his forehead, and he groaned, staggering backward, blood seeping from a 3-inch gash. Dazed, Jerry slowly lifted his hand to his forehead. He felt the sticky blood and carefully lowered his hand in front of his eyes. He screamed. I have a text to self connection. I'm thinking of the time when I was teaching, I think it was 7th grade a few years back, and there was a fight in the cafeteria, and I went to help break it up. And I think one of the student was so zoned into the fight and to fighting that he didn't realize it was me. And he kept going. I tried to pick him up. He kept going, and his momentum carried me forward, and I fell also. And so I think that that's something that happens with young people when there's a fight. We just zone everything else out. Like we have that tunnel vision, we have that anger. That's what happened. And Dr. Carson may not have even been thinking when he swung his hand with the lock in it. He probably wasn't even thinking. He could have killed that boy. Of course, the principal called me in. I'd calmed down by then and apologized profusely. It was almost an accident, I told him. I never would have hit him if I'd remembered the lock in my hand. I meant it, too. I was ashamed. Christians didn't lose their temper like that. I apologized to Jerry, and the incident was closed. Okay, so he apologized, and it seems like life goes on, right? Well, let's keep reading and see what else happens. And my temper? I forgot about it. I wasn't the kind of guy who'd split open a kid's head on purpose. Some weeks later, Mother brought home a new pair of pants for me. I took one look at them and shook my head. No way, Mother. I'm not going to wear them. They're the wrong kind. What do you mean, wrong kind? She countered. She was tired, her voice firm. You need new pants. Now just wear these. I flung them back at her. No, I yelled. I'm not going to wear these ugly things. She folded the pants across the back of the plastic kitchen chair. I can't take them back. Her voice was patient. They were on special. I don't care. I spun to her. I hate them, and I wouldn't be caught dead in them. I paid good money for those pants. They're not what I want. She took a step forward. Listen, Benny, we don't always get what we want out of life. Heat poured through my body, inflaming my face, energizing my muscles. I will, I yelled. Just wait and see. I will. I'll. My right arm drew back. My hand swung forward. Friends, he's about to hit his mother. He is about to hit his mother. Curtis jumped me from behind, wrestling me away from Mother, pinning my arms to my side. The fact that I almost hit my mother should have made me realize how deadly my temper had become. Maybe I knew it, but wouldn't admit the truth to myself. I had what I only can label a pathological temper, a disease, and this sickness controlled me, making me totally irrational. Maybe some of you have seen people. I've seen people with that level of anger and the temper and just the inability to control it. Maybe some of you have seen that in your own lives as well. In general, I was a good kid. It usually took a lot to make me mad, but once I reached the boiling point, I lost all rational control. Totally without thinking, when my anger was aroused, I grabbed the nearest brick, rock, or stick to bash someone. It was as if I had no conscious will in the matter. Friends who didn't know me as a kid think I'm exaggerating when I say I had a bad temper, but it's no exaggeration, and to make it clear, here are just two more of my crazed experiences. I can't remember how this one started, but a neighborhood kid hit me with a rock. It didn't hurt, but again, out of that insane kind of anger, I raced to the side of the road, picked up a big rock, and hurled it at his face. I seldom missed when I threw anything. The rock broke his glasses and smashed his nose. I was in the 9th grade when the unthinkable happened. I lost control and tried to knife a friend. Bob and I were listening to a transistor radio when he flipped the dial to another station. You call that music? He demanded. It's better than what you like, I yelled back, grabbing for the dial. Come on, Carson, you always... In that instant, blind anger, pathological anger, took possession of me. Grabbing the camping knife I carried in my back pocket, I snapped it open and lunged for the boy who had been my friend. With all of the power of my young muscles, I thrust the knife toward his belly. The knife hit his big, heavy ROTC buckle with such force that the blade snapped and dropped to the ground. I stared at the broken blade and went weak. I had almost killed him. I had almost killed my friend. If the buckle hadn't protected him, Bob would have been lying at my feet, dying or severely wounded. He didn't say anything, just looked at me, unbelieving. I, I, I'm sorry, I muttered, dropping the handle. I couldn't look him in the eye. Without a word, I turned and ran home. Thankfully, the house was empty, for I couldn't bear to see anyone. I raced to the bathroom where I could be alone and locked the door. Then I sank down on the edge of the tub, my long legs stretching across the linoleum, bumping against the sink. I tried to kill Bob. I tried to kill my friend. No matter how tightly I squeezed my eyes shut, I couldn't escape the image, my hand, my knife, the belt buckle, the broken knife, and Bob's face. This is crazy, I finally mumbled. I must be crazy. Sane people don't try to kill their friends. The rim of the tub felt cool under my hands. I put my hands on my hot face. I'm doing so well at school, and then I do this. I dreamed of being a doctor since I was 8 years old, but how could I fulfill the dream with such a terrible temper? When angry, I went out of control and had no idea how to stop. I'd never make anything of myself if I didn't control my temper. If only I could do something about the rage that burned inside me. Friends, I'm going to stop here and I will pick up the rest of chapter 6 in the next recording.